Okay, so I'm at the stage now where I want to start to set up some preliminary renders of this space. And so to render, normally you need to have lights, particularly for the interior, even though you will have sunlight automatically in all of your Revit scenes because the sun is there whether you like it or not. So you've always got this sun settings option to control the sun, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But again, because you're rendering interiors, it's much better usually to have your own interior light sources rather than trying to use the sun to light all of these spaces that are a fair way from the windows at the front. Now, are you sorry?
Are you going to do the ceilings first?
Yes, so that's right. So that's why it's So I need ceilings to have my lights, but also I just got to very quickly fix. I've been showing some people some things with the front of the building there, and my opening is a bit too big, so I'll just quickly fix that. And that's just a quick thing. Yeah. That's the top. Oh yeah, that's the top. Ah, it was the bottoms. Oh yeah, I was just putting it back to how it was. So, yep. Okay, so again, we've got these storefront openings, which will get quite a bit of sunlight, and I'll definitely show you how to use that for the renders as well. But for now, I'm going to just go back to the floor plan quickly, so you can see that wall now is fixed, and I had to look at that because I'm going to make a ceiling now, which is going to go up to that wall. So normally when you work on ceilings, you'll want to go to a ceiling plan. So I've got the ground floor ceiling plan, just like we've got the ground floor floor plan. So make sure you realise ceiling plans are different to floor plans. And I've got here this reference plane that I used to set true north. I don't really need to see it in this view, so I'm just going to hide that. And then that'll make it a bit easier to work with the view. And then more importantly, you can see I've zoomed into the floor plan just so you can see the walls. And I'm going to see then if I can find my ceilings. So because I've given you this file, the ceilings are already set up properly, and you should be able to select them in the view just by clicking in the middle. But if you can't select them easily like I am there, make sure you've got this option down the bottom right turned on. It's select elements by face. So I'll turn that off so that you can see then when I'm clicking, it won't select anything unless I click on the edge. And that's the default mode. That's the way Revit is when you start it up the first time. But then once you turn this setting on, it'll remember the next time you open the program. But of course, if someone else has been using it, you might need to check that. So again, with this option, select elements by face. Now, instead of having to select by clicking on the edge, I can go to the middle and still select those ceilings. Now, they should be coming up a bit more clearly than that. I'm just going to go to shaded so we can see then, yeah. So I can select them, but they still aren't coming up all that clearly. Even though I can see clearly that it's selected because in properties it's coming up as a ceiling, and when I hover, it tells me the name of the ceiling. So do you know what we can look at to adjust the depth of the view? In other words, how high or low it's looking?
3D.
Oh, you definitely can look in 3D, and we'll find it there as well. But I want to do it in this view. So the most important setting usually for ceiling plans is the view range. It's a really useful thing for all views, especially plan views. But yeah, especially useful for ceilings, ceiling plans. So again, when you click that edit button next to view range, then you'll see a lot of things you might have even been wondering about for other things, like the cut plane height. So maybe we'll look at that one first, it's the easiest to understand. So there you can see it's 2300. So I'm going to change that to, let's say, 1800. And I'll just click apply. And you can see now that the door's coming up. That's because I've lowered the cut plane so that it's below the top of the door. So remember, a plan is just a horizontal section. so this sets the height of that horizontal section plane or cut plane, and this applies to any floor plan, whether it's a ceiling plan or a floor plan. And then you've got the top. So at the moment there you can see it's coming up as level 1, that's actually right. And you can also, if I change that to unlimited, you can see there it's giving me an error because the view depth in a ceiling plan needs to be higher than the top, or at least as high. So I'll also set that to unlimited. And then click apply. And it's still coming up in not a great way. It should be coming up shaded. Don't know why. Maybe we've got to go to fine. No. Okay, so I'm just going to change one other thing. So I'm going to go back to the default settings for this view and see if that makes it better. So when I right click on that ground floor ceiling plan, I'll show you another great little trick. If you go to apply template properties, and then you can see it's got this default setting. So this is going to put it back to the original setting for ceiling plans. It's still not showing in a great way, but again I've done some things maybe with this view or with this ceiling that make it not show in the best way. There we go, that's how they should show. I think maybe we've got a couple of them there, that's what's happening. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so it was because there are a couple that don't need to be there. So you'll have that in your file as well, so maybe you can do the same thing as me to fix it. So you can see here I'm clicking in the little room there, and it's showing the ceiling really clearly with that blue highlight, and that's normally how they should show. But if I click over here, again, it's not showing clearly, and now I know the reason. It's because there's an extra ceiling there. So I'm going to press delete, and now I'm going to click again, and there we are. Now the ceiling's showing properly. So yes, I must have doubled up on the ceiling somehow. So I'm going to click here, and again, there's an extra ceiling, so I'll press delete on the keyboard or hit the cross up here, and now when I click, oops, again, there we are. So there's the ceiling, and let's see how the back, it's the same. Yes. Yes, yeah, it'll be exactly, that's right. So here it looks like there are 2 extra ceilings. I'll delete both of them, and there we are. So now we're just back to 1 ceiling. But so that you can see how to make a new ceiling, if you need to do a new one for your own design, I might delete maybe the one at the back. It's easier to make them again, so I'll just delete that. And so to make a ceiling, again, you definitely need to look at that view range option to make sure that you're going to see the ceiling in the view, in the ceiling plane. And so it's normally the top and the view depth that you'll need to check. And essentially you need to make sure that the top is higher than the ceiling, normally. And so there, if it's set to level 1, that's fine, because level 1, of course, is going to be above the ceiling. So now I'll go again on the architecture tab to ceiling. And it comes up initially with this automatic ceiling option. So that does work, and if I move the cursor there, you can see it's highlighting most of the walls to show me that if I was to click there, it would trace the whole space, or that most of it anyway. And that's great if that's what you want, but in this case it's not what I want, and often it won't be. So if automatic ceiling doesn't give you what you want, then you can always just go to sketch ceiling instead, and you're going to see the same options essentially that you have for drawing something like a floor. So you can draw any shape you like using the normal drawing tools, or you can pick walls or pick lines. Here, because it's just a rectangle, I'll use the rectangle option, of course, and just trace the inside of those walls. So that's it. So I've got the shape of my ceiling done. Tick to finish. And now you can see the ceiling just like it was before. And then to see the height, I'm going to go to a section. Now, if you don't have a section, or you're not in the habit of making sections, I'll delete some of these just so that I can show you how to make them from scratch. It's a really important thing when you're working with 3D models like this, to be able to see inside them, and one of the best ways is with a section. So don't be afraid to make sections just for you to work with. You don't need to show them all to other people, and they're extremely useful just as working views. So again, on the View tab, you've got Section. There's the shortcut up on the toolbar at the top. I'll just click Section, and then I'll click a point to one side of the building, and click a point on the other side. Don't worry if it's facing the wrong way. You can easily flip them using the double arrows there, change the direction they're looking, and change the width of the view as well using the arrows on the dash line. If you use the grips at the end of the section line, that just changes the length of the line in the view. It doesn't affect the way the section looks. And it's up to you if you want to break the middle. That's just, again, a graphical setting. So if you break it, or you can unbreak as well, again, that just changes the way the section line looks in the plan view. It doesn't affect the section view at all. And so now you can see I've got a new section. Which one is this? Is probably 4. Yeah. Okay, so in my project browser there's section 4, and now I can see really clearly the ceiling that I've just made, and see that it's not maybe at the height that I should have it. And so here's the ceiling that I've made previously. When I select that, you can see in properties, the way the height is set, usually, is going to be measured from the floor below. So people sometimes think, well, it's closer to level 1. Why wouldn't I set level 1 as the level for that ceiling? But really, it's better to set it with a height from the floor level below. And that's the way you would think about ceiling heights normally. Right, so here it's a 3 metre ceiling height, and you can see in properties, so from the level ground floor, height offset is 3000. Now this one doesn't need to be at the same height. It could be a bit lower in reality because the roof there is different to the rest of the building. But for now, maybe I'll just make it the same, and we can always adjust it. So again, in properties, I'm just going to type 3000 for the height offset. And that one actually, yeah, maybe will stay at that height. But I might just show you as well. Here we've got this other ceiling that has a gap between the, that ceiling and the floor above. So I want to bring that up so that it's, so there's no gap. Just means there's less tidying up for me to do it later, especially when I put the stairs in. I don't want to have that gap there to worry about. In real life, when you're building something like this, do you think you need that cavity normally? Yeah, you often would want it for services, but you don't need as much as people think, especially with a small space like this. You're not going to have a huge amount of services. So you might, you probably wouldn't even have ducted air conditioning for a space like this. You'd most likely just have a split system if you're going to have it at all. Well, a shop, you definitely need air conditioning, but it probably would just be a split system these days.
What are the beams? The beams are black down.
Oh, no, the beams, okay, so the way the floor structure works, yeah, it's good to think about that too at the same time as you're making the ceiling. So that's good. So the way the floor structure would work for a building like this would be, I'd say, to have the floor joists on the first floor spanning between this wall and that wall in the middle. Right, so that's, 4.6 metre span roughly?
Yeah.
And you can easily do that with a standard timber joist. So that means you would essentially, if you just want to see it roughly, you have the joists sitting under so the flooring would be up here, and then the joists would be something like this. That wouldn't even be that big. Now you don't need to show all the joists, but it's good to have a rough idea how they'd be. So they'd be something like that, and let's see what's that depth there. That's too much, so it'd probably be more like, it might have to be LVLs to span. Oh no, they wouldn't even be LVLs. So probably about 200 at most, maybe even 150. And that's it. So then the ceiling could go up to there. Right, so again, for interior design especially, you don't always need to show all of the structure, but you need to allow for it. So in this case, I've worked out, I need a bit of thickness there, but I don't need it to be, as much as it was. So again, just to go back, so I've just brought the ceiling up, and I'll show you the height that I've ended up with. So it's now, 3170. That's not a good number, so I'll just change that to 3150, maybe, just a round number. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. I'll just be. I'll just finish the recording. I'll just be a minute. Won't take long. Yeah. But, okay, so I'll just measure now from the bottom of the ceiling to my floor, because I just want to show you how to fill in this gap so that your sections don't look so messy. So there you can see it's 150 from the bottom of the ceiling to the bottom of the floor. So I'm just going to select the ceiling, go to Edit Type, Duplicate, and we'll call it plain. Doesn't really need a good name. Plain plasterboard. And then I'm going to go to Edit the structure, and I'll leave that lining on the bottom, but I'm going to make it 10 mil. It really annoys me when I see people using funny numbers for building components. You can use 13 mil for ceilings. 13 mil plasterboard's pretty standard, but there's been products for ceilings for decades now. And I don't know why people just don't get on board and look up the real products that people use. So Super Seal's the Gyprock one, and then Bowl have one as well, and they're all 10 mil. It's a special type of plasterboard that they make just for ceilings, and and it's much better if you use that one, and again 10 mil. So you don't have to worry about using the 13 mil for that stuff. And then the stud layer, I'm going to make 140, just so that it adds up to 150. Even though in reality the studs wouldn't be that thick, or the joists. Again, it's just a graphical thing so that we can fill in that gap, and it's going to help us as well when we go to do the lighting, if you've got that gap there filled in. So that's it, so I'll click OK, and then you can see I've got the coarse fill pattern option, which you might remember we looked at briefly for the walls as well. So it's the same with ceilings. You have this coarse scale fill pattern, which you can see is already set to black, and that's what I want. But it doesn't have a pattern yet, so I'm going to hit Browse there and just choose Solid. So now that fills in the gap and it reads as one solid thing, even though we know there's a floor and a ceiling, and that's necessary so we can put the lights in after. So maybe just a very final thing. So this one now, maybe I want that to look the same, even though it's at a different height, it's fine. I'm going to just go over here now, and because I've made that ceiling type, I can just change it to the new one, plain plasterboard. And that's going to give a similar look in the section. And then very last thing, if I go back to the ground floor plan just to get the other ceiling. So I've already got a section looking the other way. So I'm going to go and open that view. And you can see there's the other ceiling in the other space. And it's really important that you think about the construction. You don't need to show all the details. This is the way ceilings are normally made. So they sit inside the walls and then drop. That's why they're sometimes called drop ceilings, because they then drop down inside the wall. And you can have a gap as well. If you want to have a void for services and other things, that's definitely an option. But for your presentation drawings, sometimes it's better to not show that void space. And again, if I just set this one to plain plasterboard and then use the move tool to bring it up to sit under that other floor, and then we'll see the height should be the same as the joining ceiling. So I'll give you a little bit of time maybe just to get your ceiling sorted out, and then we can have a look at lights and set up some renders.